Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to give you a farming guide for the new lottery event aka Illya Fest. This will be a shorter video than usual, mainly because I'm very low on free time at the moment, but also because you can easily find online different spreadsheets with a lot of possible farming comps for this lottery, so it's not like you are short on ideas to take inspiration from. Therefore, what I'm going to do is giving the usual tips for the lottery event, followed by an explanation of the best 6-slot comps for the level 90 plus and level 90 plus nodes. For all the other possible options, I will link in the description below some of the spreadsheet that the community has made for this lottery. Despite the shorter format, as usual, if you find this type of content useful, please let me know by leaving a like, a comment and subscribing to the channel. It may seem trivial to you, but it's really your support that keeps me going. Without further ado, let's take a look at the lottery. If your account still needs resources to reach completion, aka you still need to level up servants or skills, then lottery events are the best place to farm and to spend your apples on. In fact, embers, copies and skill gems will be useful to you regardless of your account. Regarding the essential materials given in this lottery, all of them are pretty old by now and they have been already featured in past lottery events. So if you are a veteran player, you should already have a considerable stock of those materials. If that's the case, you should consider keeping some apples for the next coming lottery on Christmas, since when it comes to essential materials, that one is definitely better. Aside the free exchange ticket, that one gives shells. I think I've said enough. Even for veteran players with a complete account, lottery events are the only place to reliably farm friend points, which are needed to level up your craft essence and to get free servant coins for the monthly grail casting. Speaking of servant coins, they are the reason I don't particularly need to farm lottery events anymore. I am so full of embers that I will need to burn them. I'm always near the QP cap, and all of this because I can't grail my favorite servants to level 120. Given that Lasengol, even after 10 years, is still refusing to give us some universal kind of servant coins, to at least be able to level up one unit that we like to level 120, without needing to spend money on the gacha and instead being forced to bond for years to get just a few extra coins that are still not enough until we get the JP update. So yeah, I'm only farming this one for the friend points, which I don't really want to spend because I don't want to sit there for 2 days rolling the friend points gacha and managing my inventory just to level up a couple of craft essence to level 100 and getting a few extra coins for grail casting. My rant aside, if you have a developed account, you should also consider that we will need a lot of different essential materials in the future for both append skills and class score. Given that new events usually gives better returns for different essential materials compared to lottery, which only focuses on a couple of one, I think that keeping a few apples on reserve is not a bad idea. Thankfully, Lasengol is starting to give us Lotto C with the starting LP charge, which of course makes farming much easier. This one is also a very good C to level up to level 100, having pure attack stat and special damage against riding enemies, which are a lot more than you think, since it's not a trait limited to the rider class. It's not as useful as Fondant or Chocolat C against divine enemies, but you'll be using this one for sure. If you want an incentive, some farming comps for this lottery will need a level 100 copy, in particular if you lack an MP5 damage dealer. You will in fact need the extra damage in order to trigger the overkill and refund enough. Finally, the extra damage against riding enemies will be useful in the first rotation in the level 90 plus and level 90 plus nodes, as well as in the third and final rotation level 90 plus node. So having one maximally unbroken copy by then will help with damage. Speaking of which, in this lottery we will also be getting a damage bonus CE, which is very helpful for players that can't 6-slot farm and don't have a maximally unbroken black grail CE. But keep in mind that in exchange for the extra damage you'll be losing the starting MP charge from the Lotto bonus C. Furthermore, as we will discuss in a moment, I don't really recommend 5-slot farming the level 90 plus node. If you can't reach the required damage, you should focus on 6-slot farming the level 90 plus nodes. Still, it's better that we have a choice than lacking it. This lottery features 3 different rotation of requests. As a general rule, if a specific rotation is easier for you to farm, or if you need a particular ascension materials dropped only in one rotation, you should definitely focus all your apples on that one. If you have no such preferences, keep in mind that both the drop rate for the Lotto C and the drop rates for Lotto currency will be slightly increasing with each new rotation, with the third and final rotation having the best drop rates overall. So if your only interest is opening as much boxes as possible, you should spend your apples mostly on the third rotation. Overall, I also think the third rotation is the easiest one to farm, at least for me, when it comes to the level 90 plus nodes. Instead, I would say that the level 90 plus nodes are more balanced between each rotation. Speaking of balance, unlike the previous lottery event, this time around Last Angle has been more fair when it comes to drop distribution between the level 90 plus and level 90 plus nodes. In fact, if we only look at the Lotto currency, 6-slotting the level 90 plus node is generally better than 5-slotting the level 90 plus node. To be precise, that's always the case unless we are looking at high-end farming. That is, at the maximum possible drop bonus of plus 10 in a 5-slot comp. In that case, during the second and third rotation, even reaching plus 11 drop bonus with a 6-slot comp in the level 90 plus node will still be worse. In the third and final rotation, the difference is more notable, starting to appear even when we compare plus 9 and plus 10 drop bonus. But keep in mind that we are talking about a small difference. It's for these reasons that I have advised against 5-slotting the level 90 plus nodes using the damage bonus C. If you can't reach the damage required for the level 90 plus nodes, you should focus on 6-slotting the level 90 plus nodes, which is easier than you think since there are also free-to-player comps, as you will see in the following part of the video. Of course, this is assuming we are only looking at the Lotto currency. The level 90 plus nodes have in fact other benefits over the lower difficulties. First of all, an higher drop rate for the Lotto bonus CE, so on average you'll be getting extra copies of the Lotto CE faster when farming the highest difficulty node. And reaching a higher drop bonus faster means that you'll be getting more Lotto currency. If you can reach the maximum possible drop bonus of plus 12, then this argument is no longer valid. Secondly, the level 90 plus nodes usually have better drop rates for ascension materials, focusing also more on newer materials compared to the lower difficulty nodes. Of course, this is dependent on your account, so maybe for you farming a level 90 plus node is more efficient. Finally, farming the level 90 plus nodes will give your servants slightly more bond. So if you don't care about leveling up your bond level only with the usual Castoria, Oberon, Skadi and Koyan, then the highest difficulty nodes are more efficient when it comes to raw numbers. However, for me, this is where the main advantage of the level 90 plus nodes comes to light, since these nodes are much easier to farm using only a frontline comp that can include lower rarity servants. It means that you'll be able to bring any servant of your choice in the backline for bond farming, which is not the case for the level 90 plus nodes, since the party cost for them will be really high and you'll probably be forced to bring a Mash and another lower rarity servant in the backline. Remembering my previous rant about servant coins, we need those extra bond levels on our favorite units if you want to reach level 120 without rolling for extra copies. Since we are spending most of our apples during lottery events, they are the best place to farm bond levels. And I'm sure those extra free quartz from bond levels will help a lot of us that have been left dry by Draco and Tiamat. No, I'm not thinking about Anniversary or Summer. As any other real Fate fan, my only concern is Saber Medusa. Let's now start looking at the free quests available in each rotation and at the corresponding best farming comps for those nodes. In the first round, the level 90 plus is a Saber only node with a 3-1-2 layout of enemies. Among them, both Tomoe and Yaigyu in wave 3 have the riding trait, so a maximum broken copy of the Lotto CE will help with damage. Just like other level 90 plus nodes, you can of course use single core looping comps, but my advice to keep party cost low and avoid bonding with meta supports is to use multi-core farming comps. For this node, if you can find an NP2 Oberon with a maximum broken C and lower depend on your supports, this free-to-player comp is the best possible one. In fact, you won't need to waste any lore, since neither Tota nor Chloe need any level 10 skill, and the combination of a 3-star servant with a 4-star servant in the front line is exactly what is needed in order to bring 2 5-star servants in the backline, together with any 1-star servant to avoid bringing Mash. Of course, this is assuming you have already reached the master level cap. Chloe also gets an event bond bonus during this lottery, so this is really optimal bond farming. If you can't find an Oberon with a maximum broken CE, since this is the first rotation, or if you are worried about the lower depend on Oberon, given that to this day there are still Oberons without lower depend on my supports, you can bring Arash with a lower depend instead of Tota. This way Oberon will be able to use his charge skill on himself, and you'll be also free to bring any 3-star servants instead of a 1-star in the backline. Just keep in mind that Tota would have given Oberon a bastard buff, so if the support Oberon is only NP2, to be sure to kill, you should bring any servant in the backline with some kind of party buff or targetable buff for Oberon. Be sure to put it in the first backline slot, so that it will enter the field after Arash NP. The level 90 plus node of the first rotation is definitely the most difficult one to 6-slot farm. It has a 1-2-2 layout of enemies with mixed classes, including in particular both an alter ego and a foreigner. Leaving aside crit comps that focus on critting the Berserker mob in wave 1, your best and I would say only option to 6-slot farm this one is using a multi-core farming comp, with an AoE alter ego dealing with wave 2, as well as clearing the mob in wave 3, and a single target Berserker or Pretender in order to deal with wave 1 and Doman in wave 3. Ideally, we would like to bring an AoE Berserker or Pretender as a secondary DPS, in order to help kill Doman in wave 3. However, Berserkers have class disadvantage against Koyan Dark in wave 2, and Pretenders have class disadvantage against Koyan Light in wave 2. The only class that have class advantage in wave 2 is Alter Ego, so we are basically forced to bring one of them, which will deal neutral damage to Doman in wave 3. Your best option when it comes to multicore farming and damage is Tiamat, but you will need at least MP2 in order to kill reliably wave 2. That's why in my personal farming comp that you can see on the screen right now, I'm forced to use a support Tiamat, since mine is only MP1. Regarding the primary DPS, you can use Berserkers of course, but reaching 800 damage on Doman is not easy. Faker, as the only single target pretenders in the game right now, is your only other option. Her damage is quite decent considering that she has full class advantage against Doman, but you still need very high MP level in order to reliably kill with MP only. In my case, even using my MP3 Castoria, with an MP3 Faker I can't reliably kill with MP only. Moving on to the second rotation, the level 90 plus is basically an archer node with a 2-1-3 layout of enemies. I said basically because there is a single foreigner servant in wave 3, but if you are dealing enough damage in order to kill the other archer boss in wave 3, you are also very close to killing the foreigner servant even with neutral class advantage. For this second rotation, we don't have a free-to-player comp that can work with Frontline only. But just like the previous rotation, we can still keep the party cost low in order to bring any 2 SSR servants in the backline with one 1-star servant to avoid bringing mash. The caveat is that you need either Oberon or Melusine. Ideally, of course, you want to bond farm with Melusine and not Oberon. Personally, it's not a problem since my Melusine is only bond 7, given that I usually stay away from bastard looping farming. To keep the party cost low enough, we need a 1-star unit as secondary DPS. Mary Anning is our best choice if you can find a support Oberon with a Lord Append and maximum broken Lotto C. That way, thanks to her NP charge, we can use Oberon NP to clear the remaining HPs of the enemies in wave 1. Saving the Mystic Code buffs for Melusine in wave 3, letting her kill with MP only even at MP1. Speaking of Mystic Codes, you can either use Fragment of 2004 or Captain Chaldea. If you have an MP2 or higher Melusine, you can also use other Mystic Codes with lower overall damage buffs. If you can't or don't want to use Oberon NP on wave 1, Banyan can replace Mary Anning since she has better damage in wave 1. However, you'll probably need face cards in order to clear the remaining HPs of the 2 mobs. Furthermore, you will need a Lord Append on Melusine this time around. To guarantee the kill in wave 1 without Oberon NP, we must bring Pretender Elisa. Given her AoE charge, you won't need any kind of append. However, party cost will be considerably higher, so you won't be able to bring 2 SSR in the backline. The level 90++ node in the second rotation is an assassin-only node with a 3-2-1 layout of enemies. In practice, your only concern here is reaching 350k damage against the Valkyries in each wave. The other assassin mobs are only there to force us to bring an AoE DPS. Just to be clear, there are some multicore farming comps for this node, but they require high MP levels for both the primary and secondary DPS. Meanwhile, single core looping comps only need high MP level for the single AoE DPS, so they are much more accessible. For example, if you have all the meta supports, you can choose your primary DPS from your friend list. Unfortunately, 6-slot farming this node seems easier than it actually is. First of all, the damage required. The AoE DPS you'll be using in this node is either a Berserker, Alter Ego or Caster. Berserkers and Alter Ego only has half class advantage against assassin enemies, while casters have to deal with that 1.9% attack multiplier as well as usually abysmal attack stat. Adding the fact that we lack any kind of super effective NP against the 3 Valkyries, and all of a sudden we are looking at very high NP levels for the primary DPS. To increase our damage we need specific supports. The best one are in order Ganesha, Santa Marta and Nero Bride. But here comes the second problem, looping. While the 3-2-1 layout of enemies is pretty generous, they are assassin enemies, which have the second lowest refund potential in the game. So despite the forgiving layout, you'll probably need double Castoria. If your damage dealer has high enough MP level, you can get away with exchanging one Castoria for the likes of Lady Avalon or Nero Bride. Here extra damage will matter when it comes to overkill and refund. Regarding my personal comp that you can see on the screen, despite having an NP2 Summary Bookie with Grails, an NP3 Castoria and Ganesha, which is the best damage support for this node, I still need a second Castoria NP in order to deal enough damage in Wave 2 and Wave 3. If I bring Lady Avalon, I won't be able to kill with NP only in the 2 final waves. So I will need to rely on Ibuki crits, which are fairly common given that even Lady Avalon NP produce stars. As a final note for this node, if it's not obvious, this time around Oberon is not a very good support, since we need to spread the damage evenly in all 3 waves, instead of having a single burst in the final wave. There are of course exceptions, mainly in those multi-core farming comps I've mentioned previously. The 2 most notable ones are the Teth and Draco combo, where we combine Draco Amazing Refund with Teth Amazing Charge Potential to let Draco NP 3 times. The other one is the Tiamat and Charlotte combo, where we are using Tiamat NP to inflict Skill Seal, thus enabling 1 extra time Charlotte NP's super effective modifier. As I said previously, these comps require high MP level for both the primary and secondary AO DPS, so less player will be able to use them. In these comps, Oberon skill 3 is always used on the secondary AO DPS in order to let it kill wave 2. For the final rotation, the level 90 plus node is basically a mirror of the previous rotation level 90 plus node. Once again, we have an assassin only node with a 1-2-3 layout of enemies. Basically the same layout of the previous level 90 plus node, but reversed. And once again, the 3 bosses are the 3 Valkyries, this time around of course with lower HPs. Just like with the previous rotation, we have a free-to-player Frontline only comp that will let us bring 2 SSR servants of our choice in the backline, together with a 1-star servant to avoid bringing Mash. I said free-to-player, but technically Caster Q is not a free-to-player unit, but given that he was on rate up with Oberon, most of us should have at least a few copies. NP3 is the sweet spot for damage required and for unlocking his append skill with low bond level. For this comp to work, you will need a maximum broken event Lotto CE, and you'll need to lore Q append skill. That's the only lore you'll need to use for this comp, since Q skills don't need to be lowered, similarly to caster shooting skills. Regarding the Mystic codes, you will need one with an NP child skill. Here I've used the Splendid New Year, but even Halloween Royalty will work. The level 90 plus node of the final rotation is a mixed class node with a 3-1-3 layout of enemies. The main bosses here are Avenger Nitocris in wave 2 and Rider Ovdi in wave 3. On top of being the most optimal node of the event to farm, in my opinion this one is also the easiest one to farm among level 90 plus nodes, for several reasons. Unlike the previous rotation, this time around HP values increase gradually with each new wave, with the first one having very low HP mobs, which can be cleared by any decent DPS, and with only the final wave having an high HP boss, which can be taken care as usual with Oberon. Furthermore, unlike the first rotation, this time around we are allowed to bring Berserkers to easily deal with enemies of different classes. As cherry on top, the two bosses, Nitrocris and Ozymandias, share quite a lot of common traits. The most notable ones are the Divine trait, which means Santa Marta synergy, the Sky attribute for Nero Bride synergy in a looping comp, and finally the Chaotic alignment, which enables Arcwade farming comps. Ozymandias being a rider, he also has the riding passive of course, so the Lotto drop bonus C will also help with damage. The easiest way to farm this node is by using a multi-core farming comp, with an AoE secondary DPS dealing with wave 1 and the mobs in wave 3, and a primary single target DPS dealing with Nitrocris and Ozymandias in wave 2 and wave 3 respectively. There are exceptions of course, namely single core farming comps that focuses on either Death or Arcwade as the only DPS. Kinda, we'll see in a moment. Returning to multi-core farming comps, among the best secondary AoE DPS we have of course Death, which is by far the best charger for the team, as well as having bonus damage against the Divine trait, Nitrocris and Ozymandias. He will need higher MP level though if you want him to kill a rush in wave 3. Another good option is Samaribuki, which has a super effective modifier against the 2 mobs in wave 3, and in particular, being a berserker, she doesn't have any problem dealing with a rush. If you want more party charge, you can bring Tiamat, but since she has a class disadvantage against a rush in wave 3, you'll only pair her to Arcwade, which is by far the most reliable primary DPS for this node, given her super effective NP against all the servants in this node, as well as her class advantage against Nitrocris in wave 2. However, keep in mind that her chaotic super effective modifier is tied to NP levels, so her damage potential is deeply tied to her investment. All the other best primary DPSs are single target berserkers. Summer Nobu has the highest damage potential given her super effective modifier against divine enemies, but lacking a decent NP charge skill, she will need to be paired with secondary DPSs that can charge her, like Death for example. With Kintoki and Grimhild instead, you should have no problem charging their MPs, with Grimhild having synergy with Castoria, as well as a power mod against chaotic enemies, while Kintoki can deal even more damage, having synergy with Oberon as well as an upgraded MP. Regarding my personal farming comps, the one I'll be using the most features Grimhild and Samaribuki. I'm using this one since I have both the MP2 with Grails, and both of them are only at Bond 6, but needing both damage dealers at MP levels means that this comp is definitely not the most accessible one. That's where Arcwade entered the scene. If you can find a decently invested one on your support list, you can get away with bringing an MP1 secondary DPS. For example, here you can see the other comp I'll be using in order to level up Bond with Death and Tiamat. Keep in mind that Death being a better charger, he can work with base Lotto C on Santa Marta, while Tiamat will need a Maximum Broken copy on her. It shouldn't be very difficult since we are talking about the final and third rotation. NP3 Arcwade with a Maximum Broken Lotto C is just enough to kill with MP only in wave 3, or at least leave so few HPs that any card will finish the job. For those players using their own Arcwade, the Lotto C on her doesn't need to be Maximum Broken, since you can give her enough charge with both Death and Tiamat, especially if you consider append skills, but keep in mind that Maximum breaking it will give her extra damage. Finally, let's talk about Arcwade single core frontline only farming comps. For all these ones, you will need a Hyper copy at level 120 NP5 and with a level 100 Lotto C, so I hope you have plenty of whale friends, since that way you can 6-slot farm this node with only Oberon and plenty of other NP1 supports slash DPSs. Using a Mystic Code without charge skill like Arctic Uniform, you can bring either Doman, Death or Koyan Light, all of which will deal with only wave 1. Similarly, using a Mystic Code with an MP charge skill like Halloween Royalty, you can bring either Summer Ibuki, Raines or Waver. In Ibuki's case, you will clear wave 1 as usual. Meanwhile, thanks to Waver or Raines charge skills, Arcwade will be able to use RMP 3 times. You will use even Waver and Raines MP, but only to buff Arcwade damage. Finally, there is also a Frontline only comp that doesn't require Oberon, using Death in its place, but most importantly needing only Welfare Santa Marta in the 3rd party slot. So definitely a cheaper version of all the previous comps. Technically you will need NP2 Death in order to clear wave 3 with any face card after MP, but since we are not using Oberon, we can safely finish the job on turn 4 if we are very unlucky with the face cards, so even those with NP1 Death can use this comp. For this variation, Anniversary Blonde Mystic Code is the best one to use, since it has both the best damage buffs for Arcwade, considering that we are again not using Oberon, as well as a big start bomb to help finish the job with crits if you are using only NP1 Death, as we said before. That's all for this event guide. As usual, if you have found this type of content useful, please let me know by leaving either a like or a comment, and of course consider subscribing in order to help out the channel. That way hopefully I will see you again next time. Bye bye.